Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, we are continuing our study of the work entitled Kitabun Nikah, entitled the Book of Marriage, as this work is within a larger work entitled Minhaju Sadiqeen wa Tawdihul Fiqh fi Deen, the way of the traveler, clarifying fiqh within the deen, clarifying law within the religion, as this work is authored by the esteemed scholar Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Nasir as-Sa'di. May Allah the Exalted bestow expansive mercy upon his soul as he passes in what year? As he passes in what year? In the year 1376 after the Hijrah. And our discussion today is a discussion that speaks to what is called Shurutun Nikah, the conditions of marriage. And the term nikah we have already defined as aqd tazweej, as the contract of marriage, or the contract by which one becomes married. That is what is meant by the term nikah, and we even understand that further now as ijab and qubul, as there being a proposal and acceptance of that proposal. We now understand that language. As for shurut, the shurut that can make a marital contract valid. As for the conditions that make a marital contract valid, we first need to understand what a shart is, what a condition is. So shurut is the plural of the term shart. Conditions is the plural of the term condition. A condition in fiqh, a condition in law, it is defined as ما يلزم من عدمه العدم وما لا يلزم من وجوده الوجود بذاته. It is that which its non-existence necessitates non-existence, and it is that which its existence does not necessitate the existence of the reason it is being done. Now, while that sounds like legal jargon, we can explain that further by an example. We'll take this definition in two halves. First half, ما يلزم من عدمه العدم, that which its non-existence necessitates non-existence. If one thing doesn't exist, then the other thing can't exist. Okay? So what could be a condition of a marriage that can fit this side of the definition? Well, as we're going to explain in a moment, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "La nikaha illa bi wali." There is no marriage without a wali. There is no marriage without a guardian. Okay. Our first part of the definition, its non-existence necessitates non-existence. No wali, no valid marriage, right? Okay, so then a wali is a condition of a marriage if it's part of the definition. And that which its existence does not necessitate the existence of the reason it's being done. Second half of the definition, just because you have a wali doesn't mean you are married. Just because you have a wali doesn't mean you're getting married. You follow? So again, that which is non-existence necessitates non-existence, and that which is existence does not necessitate the existence of the reason it is done. Anything that fits this definition, it will be a condition of a thing. Marriage has conditions. Now, simplifying that even further, there are certain things that have to exist before the marital contract in order for the marital contract to be valid. And if these things are not in existence before the marital contract, then the marital contract is not valid. So far, so good? Okay, so we're now going to discuss what these conditions of a marriage are. Now, the author here, he states firstly, and some of this we stated last week, but we can reiterate, inshallah. The author here, he mentions that it is imperative for there to be mutual consent between both parties in the marriage. His actual language here, it is imperative that there is pleasure between both spouses, that both spouses are pleased with one another, meaning is mutual consent. The bride wants to marry the groom wants to marry the bride. We don't have a true concept of forced marriages in Islam. La ikraha fi din. There's no coercion, there's no compulsion, there's no force in the religion of Islam. And if there are scenarios where we have arranged marriages, then because we can have arranged marriages, even with that, if a person later on gets into a space where they're not pleased with the marriage that was arranged for them, then our law allows for an exit strategy from that scenario too. So even in the space of arranged marriages, there are ways to exit from that as well. You follow? So we don't have a true concept of forced marriages within our faith. He goes further and he states, and it is imperative that there is a wali. La nikaha illa bi wali. There is no marriage except with a wali. This hadith is sahih. This hadith is sound. It has been collected by the five. It has been collected by the five. The five here, this is hadith language. It has been collected by the five, meaning there are five sources or five references where you'll find this particular hadith. That's what this language means, collected by the five. Who are the five? It is the Musnad of Ahmed. It is the Sunan of Abu Dawood. It is the Jami' of At-Tirmidhi. It is the Sunan of An-Nasa'i and the Sunan of Ibn Majah. So in our previous language, it is the four plus Ahmed. The four plus Ahmed, that is the five. And that's where you can find this particular hadith. Now, we'll leave that because we actually discussed that during the question and answer session of our last session. We'll leave that unless we have a reason to revisit it. We believe we will ask. Based on our discussion last week and the questions and answers we had last week, do we understand the concept of a wali? We understand the concept? We understand the right of a wali and the role of a wali? We understand that the wali is not just a piece you put on the chessboard to move how you want. Right? You don't do that with your wali. You follow? And if that's happening, that person may not be qualified to be a wali. That's also possible, right? Okay. We'll give you a story though. We'll give you a story. We don't know if we shared this or not. But in a different lifetime, about 20 years ago, there was a scenario. There was a scenario where there was a particular sister. And this particular sister's situation was such that her parents wanted her to marry people that they deemed fit for her. Because parents look out for the well-being of their children, right? The challenge was they were identifying people that were of a social stature and were culturally congruent with where they were, but not necessarily what the daughter had in mind and desired for a husband. Okay. The matter continues until the daughter, as she at that time ascribed herself to the orthodoxy of the faith, begin to identify what she deemed to be deficiencies in the aqidah of the wali, deficiencies in the aqidah of the father. Okay. At the top of the list, at least in what was presented at that time, grave worship and worship of saints. Okay. This was the presentation of it anyway. Okay. So we raised the matter it was brought to us, it was put on our table at the time. We're students in the Islamic University of Medina. We raised it to a few different scholars, but namely a Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, may Allah preserve him. And if you know who he is and his stature, then you know. If you don't, then that's a story and a history inside of itself. But save it to say, he is the leading scholar in the prophetic city of Medina, and has been so for a number of decades. There's no one in scholarship who has more precedence than Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, may Allah preserve him, with the hundreds of scholars that are present in that city, with the stature and the knowledge and the work that they have all put forth. Not taking anything away from that, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin is the Sheikh of the Mashayikh. He is a scholar, right? He's a scholar. There's almost no one inside the prophetic city of Medina of scholarship except that they are from his students. Now, we raised the matter to him. You're not finding anyone more senior than him. We posed a question, and if in fact it is true that a person's aqidah, that a Muslim's aqidah is that far off that it may teeter or flirt with the boundaries of kufr, right? If we're there, I'm not saying this situation was, but it was presented as such at the time. If we're teetering with kufr can disqualify a Muslim from being a wali. That's not really hard to come to a conclusion on. So it wasn't an issue of information. It was an issue of, is this reality enough to remove this right? And if this reality is enough to remove this right, we're not the ones that make that call. Let's go to someone else who's more qualified us to make that call. I'm not answering for that on the day of resurrection. Right? Let's go to somebody. Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. Present it to him. He says, go back to the father, talk to the father. But Sheikh, go back to the father, talk to the father. All right. Come back. Sheikh, the father still is in the space that he's in. The daughter's still in the space that she's in. What can we do? You need to refer this matter to a judge so the judge can offer a judgment in this particular matter. Because of the gravity of the right of the wali, it can't just be removed easily like that. That's how heavy the right of the wali is, right? That's how much right he has, right? As a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a brother, or whatever it may be. You can't just remove it because, he's not allowing you to do what you want to do, right? That doesn't remove his right. Not that in and of itself. Now, he can be in disagreement with you and he can himself choose, well, I don't think this is good for you. I don't think it's a good fit, and I don't think it's going to end pretty. So I'm going to absolve myself from this, and I will appoint somebody else. But I'm not going to be held responsible for this on the day of resurrection, right? He can do that, but you can't just remove him, right, so easily. Right? I'm saying that because many of our sisters, again, have this idea that the wali is I won't even say a rook. I won't even say a knight, a pawn on the chessboard. Just move one piece at a time and one space at a time, and however to wherever she wants that pawn to be at. That's not the role. It's not the role of a wali, right? And the role of the role of a wali also is not to make legitimate what you already had going before that was illegitimate. That's not necessarily his job either. He might cover you, right? He might help you out, but that's not his role, right? His role is to look out for the best interests of the woman and to assure she is being navigated into a scenario that is better for her in her spirituality, in her life, this life, and in hereafter. Is this person a proper match for her in her life journey, in her spiritual journey? That's his role, right? Not just to clean up behind you. Since we're talking about it, and we're going to get to the book, since we're talking about it, when the wali appoints someone else to stand in his stead, or if someone else has to be appointed to his stead for whatever reason, that person is called the wakil, right? That person is called the wakil, right? A wakil is one that is made responsible for another by the wali. The wali appoints, right? Someone else in that particular role. Yes.
Speaking on that, so say, for instance, a woman isn't, like her family isn't Muslim, and then she comes to the masjid to get a wali or a wakil appointment. What is he at that point?
What is who? What?
The man that's appointed.
Okay, so the question is asking if a Muslim woman does not have Muslim male guardians for her, and she comes to her local masjid and someone is appointed for her, what is that person, a wali or a wakil? He is a wakil.
Okay.
Right, he is a wakil. Because and we went through this last week, so we won't go through all of the detail. We'll mention it in the form of another story, but we'll say this first. The role of a wakil is not necessarily, and we're speaking to people in the West, we're speaking to people in America, we're speaking to people of our culture. The role of a wakil is not to be your surrogate husband until you get a husband. The role of a wakil is not to be your surrogate father until you get a father. The role of a wakil is not to be your surrogate spiritual leader until you get a husband, right? That's not the role, right? Or your surrogate father until you get a husband. That's not his role. The wakil's role, his responsibility, is to assist you in the marital process. His job is not even to find you a husband. That's not even his job. Not his job. Now he can choose to help out with something here or there, right? He can choose to help out. He may know some people and kind of identify some things. It's not his job. His job is, okay, there is a suitor that has presented himself to this sister. There's a sister, the sister's interested in a particular brother. They need to establish communication and go through the process of moving toward a marriage. He navigates that. That's his job. Once you got married, his job is really over, right? We know our culture, we know our people, right? He's not held in suspended animation as your personal counselor. We made that up, right? We made that up, right? It's not his job to oversee the entire of your marriage forever. We made that up. If not, offer me a verse or hadith. Yes.
So does that go, that's the same all across for a wali and wakil, like once you get married, like the responsibility is now your husband?
الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are responsible for women. So this is, we'll get to it. The sister is asking, is this across the board the meaning of a wali and a wakil? Okay. The idea, and possibly where we get a little conflated, is because it's your father who's the wali, right? So regardless of what happens, he's still your father, right? Your uncle is still your uncle, your brother's still your brother, right? So we kind of transmute that into what the wakil should be. No, your father, go to your father for that, go to your uncle, your brother for that, go to them for that, right? Unless the wakil wants to make himself available that way because he's being extra nice,
And even if,
right?
even if the brother and the, like, even if the males are not Muslim, still.
Your family's your family. Your family's your family, right? Your family's your family. That's still this person's brother-in-law. It's still family, right? Okay. So, and I don't want to lose these two thoughts. Men are responsible for women. So we're going to get to this in Kitab al-Sadaq, in the book of dowries, right? Mahar. But this is what the dowry is representative of. When the dowry is given and accepted, right, and we go through the marital ceremony, men are responsible for women. So the duty and responsibility that the father had over you, that the brother, your grandfather, your uncle, that transfers to the husband. These are the husband's responsibilities now. Does that make sense? Right? So if an individual is a wakil who is not your relative, then at the point that you're married, that responsibility is on the husband. It doesn't rest with the wakil, right? You don't get to have a husband and a surrogate husband at the same time. No. You're married to this guy. Does that make sense? Does this sound crazy? Right? And we know, we know in our scenarios, we are largely responsible for ourselves, right? We're largely responsible for ourselves. So we put things into place to serve our community, and maybe we have some counseling services that are available, or people that you can go to, or the imam, or whatever it may be. And sometimes, because we don't have so many people, maybe it's one person that's serving more than one role, right? But even if it is one person serving more than one role, we should still be cognizant that I'm interacting with this person in this role, not in that role, right? So that, it's this guy. So now I get this, that, and that. No. You came for this service. This is what you're going to get, right? All right. Now, story. We're in Kuwait. 2011, I believe. So about 12 years ago, 11 years ago, right? Whatever it is, 12 years ago. And Sheikh Suleiman al-Ruhaili, may Allah preserve him, is visiting from Medina. He's there for a particular conference, and we're there, and we benefit from him during the time that he's there. We were able to sit in his lessons in usul al-fiqh and qawaid fiqhiyya, in legal theory and legal maxims, and we had dinner with him, and different things that happened during the time we were there. And after one of his lectures, he gave a talk one evening, and after the talk, we're out in the desert because we do stuff. We go out into the park, right? They go out into the desert at nighttime, right? That's the thing over there, right? They set up their tents, and it's like a whole vibes, right? How they do it, right? So after all of that, dinner and all that, we're talking to the sheikh, and we're speaking to the sheikh about our scenario here in America, because in America, when it comes to the wakil, often the wakil is the good brother on the musalla, right? The good brother on the musalla, okay, you the wakil of the sisters, or the sister knows somebody, so because she knows somebody or knows somebody who knows somebody, she wants to just pick that person. Oh, I select you to be my wakil. Now, who said you want to, right? So we have that type of a thing. So what Sheikh Suleiman, may Allah preserve him, what he told us at that time, and again, these particular scholars that we're mentioning, if you're unfamiliar, then take the time to kind of look into who they are. He is one of the leading scholars in Medina today, right? Today, and he's a professor in the Islamic University of Medina. He is in the seat of fatwa for the prophetic city of Medina, right? He is one that issues fatwa for the people of the city, right? Edicts for the people of the city. But in any regard, he says that if a woman does not have a wali, then the sultan becomes her wali. Then the sultan becomes her wali. And typically, the sultan, meaning the governmental body, right, the Islamic governmental body, typically they will have a department of government that oversees that, right? Like the courthouse. The courthouse oversees that, and the judge is responsible for that function with whoever he is overseeing in that particular department, that area of government, right? Okay. So he's responsible for her in that. In your scenario, right? He's speaking to us. I'm translating it, paraphrasing the experience. In your scenario, you all don't have that. So because you all don't have, you don't have an Islamic government, you don't have a court system, you don't have a judge to oversee the process, right? And just from the standpoint of vision, that is something that we can work to establish within a generation or less, right? We can have our own court system in complement of the current court system and authorized by it in order to see our own civil affairs, like with marital affairs and things like that. Like that can happen, right? That can be something that we do, right? The Jewish community does so. Also, the British community, the Muslims there, they have something like that. They have something set up that is acknowledged by the state in the judgments that they make in civil affairs and civil marital affairs and things like that, right? This is something that can happen. But we don't have that either. So he tells us, he says, well, what happens is the authority of that governmental body of the sultan will lie with the Islamic center in the area or the imam in the area who the people trust with the affairs of marriage and divorce. They are credible, qualified for such, and the people go to them for that, right? So it's your local, your regional, local masjid community that they are responsible for those duties. The people trust them with the affairs of marriage and divorce. Okay? If that Islamic center / imam / sheikh, if it's not there as an institution, then who is the local sheikh in your area, the local student of knowledge in your area, in your region, who the people go to and trust in their affairs of marriage and divorce? Then you go to this person, right? And going down this tier, this is where the authority is falling. So now they can appoint someone else as a wakil in the role, right? From the standpoint of just organization and structure. But we're going through this tiered process. If you do not have an Islamic institution that is qualified and trusted with such, if you don't have a local sheikh or student of knowledge who is qualified and trusted with such, then you identify a righteous Muslim in your locale who is responsible, and the people can trust him with affairs of marriage and divorce, and then this person is the one that fulfills that role. And if you all are not following this tier process, then I want you to inform the people of America that they are threatening the validity of their marriages. That there are people that are marrying that may not truly be married, their marriages may not actually be valid, right? Because a wali is a condition of the marriage. It's not something it's not a piece you just throw in there. There's an actual function there. And if it's not there, you're not really married. You're not really married, right? So this far, to preserve the right and the role of the wali, how far are we away from now at this point? Oh, I was married before, so I don't need a wali, right? I'm grown, right? I'm 30, 40, 50 years old. I'm 60 years old. I don't need no wali, right? No, doesn't quite work like that, right? And again, we acknowledge the views that exist in some of scholarship, like you may come to some of these conclusions in the Shafi'i school or the Hanafi school, their approaches to law. We're not dismissing that, right? We're not dismissing that. However, two things. One, what do we do with the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he mentions any woman who marries herself without a wali, then her marriage is batil, batil, batil. Her marriage is invalid, invalid, invalid. Said it 3 times. What you going to do with that, right? And number 2, we also have to consider which approach in law and which view on this issue is healthiest and most practical for our people in the lands that we are in the West and in America in particular. Does a woman not having a wali work for us? Does it really work? You follow? And we have enough data to look back at the experiences that we've had to kind of measure this out. It doesn't really work that way. Even if that is an opinion and a view that we want to take, real time, practically on the ground, those marriages have a tendency to not work out well. She didn't have representation. Now she walks into a scenario, and she's in a scenario where she's in a negative scenario, right, for any myriad of reasons. And now she's coming back to the people who were meant to be in that seat of authority asking for help. Now she want to come to the local masjid. Now she want to come to the local imam. Now she want to come to the local sheikh because we didn't do it properly on the front end, right? Because you want to find a loophole somewhere, right? Because you want to move pieces on a chessboard instead of following Sharia. Okay. There is coming a hadith that is muttafaqun alayh, that is agreed upon. La tunkah al-ayyim, the woman who has been previously married is not to be married until her order is sought. Until her order is sought. Until her commandment is sought. Meaning, if it's a woman who has been previously married, you have some experience. Right? You have some experience, right? And you understand to a degree men, and you understand to a degree relationships and commitments and things of that nature, right? And women are like this, right? Women are like this. And most men should know, women know. If men you don't know, then pay attention. A woman that has certain experience with the man, she has a certain look that she gives you. She has a certain look that she gives you. She don't gotta say nothing, you just kind of know, right? So a woman that has this experience, then this is considered, right? This is considered. So the role of her wali and her guardian, he's present and he's there monitoring, guiding, he's offering counsel, but he's giving her also a bit more room, right? A bit more room to be a bit more independent for herself and a bit more room to navigate, right? Herself. Now he's going to try to make sure that she doesn't run off the road, but okay, go ahead. I'll let you hold the wheel for a little bit, no problem, right? That's this individual. The hadith continues. وَلَا تُنْكَحْ الْبِكْرِ, and the virgin is not the virgin is not married hatta until her permission is sought. Until her permission is sought, right? Until her permission is sought. And what is her permission? قالوا يا رسول الله وكيف إذنها? They said, O Messenger of Allah, well, how is she given permission? He states, if she's silent. If she's silent. If she gives a silent approval. If she gives a tacit approval. Now, just so that we're clear, what does the term bikr mean? What does the term virgin mean within our Sharia? Well, there are a couple of views here. View number one is that she has not had intercourse before. View number two is that she has not been within a marriage that has been consummated before, right? And those two are different, right? Those two, maybe they shouldn't be different. Maybe they shouldn't be different, but those two can be different, right? Those two can be different. So between these two is how we're going to define a bikr, right? A virgin within our sharia. But in both cases, there is involvement and consideration from the woman in her marriage, right? And to this degree, we are actually looking out for the welfare of our women, right? So how far are we away from womanizing and from secondary but necessary and suppressing our women? All of this is to serve them. All that we've stated is to serve them, all of it, right? There's not much here in what we've just mentioned that benefits the man. This is all for the benefit of the woman, and this is how our sharia is structured. It looks out for our women. Moving forward, the author states, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, A'linu in nikah, collected by Ahmed. Publicize the marriage. Publicize the marriage. So now this is a third condition of a valid marriage. There is mutual consent between both parties, there is a guardian, and there is public notice of the marriage. These three make a marriage valid in our sharia, in our legislation. Public notice. What do we think that means? What is a public notice of marriage? Like what?
The community know about it.
The community knows about it. Okay, how would the community know about it? Inviting to? Inviting them to the wedding? Witnesses of the wedding? Okay, good. We'll look at what the author states and then we'll explain. He states, وَمِنْ إِعْلَانِهِ, and from public notice, meaning from the examples of what public notice can be, not limited to these, but examples of what they could be, he states, shahadatu adlain, two credible witnesses. Not two witnesses, two credible witnesses. Because we do this too. We just grab whoever and just have them there. Oh, I got a witness. Credible witnesses. Meaning, think like this, that often in marital disputes, it will be raised to the court system if the dispute is large enough, right? If it's high enough, it ends up in the courts. Yes or no? This is all around the world, right? So if there is something that is occurring, and we are in need of witnesses that can testify in court one way or the other to what has or has not taken place, this witness needs to be credible enough that this person can stand in court, bear witness, and the witness is actually considered. Okay, that is what happened then. That's what happened because the witness said that. Now, the sister that you want to have as a witness, the brother that you want to have as a witness, do they fit that role? When something is taking place and now we need to prove, for example, well, how many divorces were there that happened? How many times did you divorce your wife? Right? You come up with all these different numbers you come up with, right? Well, who was there? Right? When the claim against the wife or something that she done that the husband is saying about her, okay, well, right, we weren't there, right? And the husband and the wife, y'all saying conflicting things now, right? So we need some type of support to identify it one way or the other. It's a witness, right? This is what you are. This is the responsibility you're placing on that person. This is that responsibility when you're asking them to be a witness to your marriage. It's not just some type of honorary seat in the place of a best man or a best woman. Because, you know, in our bedrock, a lot of us still kind of Christian, right? So we think, oh, best man, best woman, oh, two witnesses. Okay, I want you to be my witness, you to be my witness. Right? This is an actual role and has function. It has utility in law, right? It has utility in law that may need to come back around at some point in time, right? Okay. A credible witness, when we speak to adala, when we speak to credibility, we are speaking to an individual that isn't, we're not saying infallible, we're not saying sinless, we're not saying that, right? We all have faults. But this person, typically, their norm, they're not known to be people who commit major sins. They're not known to be people that commit major sins. Okay? And there are also people that are not known to openly, publicly sin. That's not their norm, right? Everybody has sins and shortcomings, right? But sometimes if you're going to do something, try to put a little bit of cover on it, right? That's different than the person that's just out open and just doesn't care, and just this person is rebelling against obedience to Allah. Not a credible witness. Not a credible witness in our Sharia. You follow? 2 credible witnesses. All right, that's what that means, if we didn't know. Now, 2 credible witnesses, now that we know what credible means, this means, and they're Muslim, I'm sorry. 2 credible Muslim witnesses. 2 credible Muslim witnesses. We know you want your father there, your mother there, we know you want your brother there. That's cool. They can be there. They can even participate. But the witnesses, 2 credible Muslim witnesses. All right? Now, 2 male credible Muslim witnesses, or 4 female credible Muslim witnesses, or any mixture of that, right? For example, 1 Muslim credible witness and 2 female credible Muslim witnesses, for example, right? However that coalesces as a minimum. You can have more than 2, but as a minimum, right? 2. Okay. Now, this is one example of public notice. So understand, the purpose of the witnesses is not for there to be witnesses for the marriage to be valid. The 2 witnesses are fulfilling the purpose of i'lan. They're fulfilling the purpose of public notice. Okay? So if this holds true, because it is, then this is not the only means of public notice. This is the most common form of public notice in order for the marriage to be valid. The author continues and he states, 2 credible witnesses, it being publicized or made manifest to people, the striking of the duf, or what is similar to it, right? We're not as familiar with the striking of the duf where we are, but in the lands like where the author is from, when there's a marriage, then people go about the town hitting on the duf drum, right? Hitting on the duf drum. So when you hear it being beat a certain way, oh, somebody just got married. Okay, wasn't brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so about to get married? Okay, that must be them. Public notice, now you're aware, right? Now you're aware, right? This can also be, in our day and time, it could be some form of notice on social media. That's also possible, for example. That's public, right? We can't quite say in the newspaper anymore because people are not reading newspapers like that anymore, right? But social media, possible, right? Public notice, you put it out. Brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so got married on this particular day, right? They're married now. We know, right? Go ahead.
That's what them catfish do. You ride around in the car just
Well, again. So, right. So non-Muslims, right? Non-Muslims, right? In American culture, when non-Muslims marry, it's common, right, that they ride around in the car and they put strings with cans and little flags on there and whatever it is. They honk the horn riding around, right? This is not something to be looked down upon. This is something that is within our Sharia. They're making public notice of their marriage, right? And perhaps, I haven't done the history on it, but perhaps this is some of the remnants from Islam that is still with them, right? Or that impacted them in some way. Public notice of the marriage. You follow? So understand, again, we do need 2 credible witnesses, but its purpose is public notice. And there are other ways to achieve public notice if we don't have 2 witnesses for whatever reason. The author continues and he states, it is not for the wali of a woman to marry her to someone that is not a compatible mate for her. And a fajr is not a compatible mate for an afifa. and a what is a word for this? A fajr is a delinquent. A fajr is a degenerate. We have certain degenerates in society, right? This is what the term fajr means. We'll translate and say things like wicked or corrupt or things like that. But this is the person that is just going to just be involved in major sins, right, as a norm, not as the like exception or something like that. You in a scenario, you in a situation, it happened, okay. The person openly just, openly sins, doesn't care, doesn't have that type of respect or dignity for Islam or for our Lord. They just openly do what they do, right? A fajr shouldn't be married to one that is an afifa, one that is chaste, right? One that is chaste and one that is righteous. From the standpoint of compatibility. Now, is the marriage valid? Marriage is valid, but from the standpoint of compatibility, the wali shouldn't marry the woman to someone that is not compatible for her. This is his job, that's his role. He's looking out for her best interests of somebody that's compatible. And sometimes our sisters, maybe a little bit more than sometimes, the guy they want ain't the guy that's the best guy for her, right? And sometimes she will even know that and still will want to do it anyway. I don't know if she thinks she's going to change him. I don't know what she think. I mean, y'all here, y'all can tell me what y'all think, right? But it's his job. Okay, are you compatible? Does this really have a strong chance of working for the better or not? And this is how a father's going to be with his daughter, right? The daughter might like champion over here, right? But the father, no. He just, this guy, he a runner. He a runner, right? You're not running through my daughter. No, right? Daddy, why? No, not that one, right? Okay. That's the role of the wali, right? That's the role of the wali or the wakil if he's in that space, right? Now, a person that's in the standpoint of a father, he is a guardian and a father, so he has like double authority, right? So he may be able to impress some things on his daughter that a person that's not a father can't do, right? A wakil may say, listen, I don't think so, and here's why, but I can't force you though. And if it go left, don't come back with the crocodile tears. I'm telling you on the front what I see. Right? And sometimes the sister listen and sometimes they don't and they come back around with the crocodile tears. Right? Okay. The author continues here and he makes a statement. We'll state it because it's here, but we're stating this because of the conversation that it will open up. He states, وَالْعَرَبْ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ, and the Arab, some of them to others, are compatible mates for each other. Compatible mates for each other. Now again, does this mean that people of different cultures cannot marry? No, it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean, people who have a similar culture, there may be a higher probability of them being able to relate to one another than someone else that is from a different culture. There are people that their personality types can allow for different cultures because they're adventurous that way. And the things that are different in culture, they can appreciate. But there are certain things, in fact, there are many things that go unsaid that we don't necessarily anticipate that are really important to us because of our culture. In a different culture, it might be different. Might be different, right? It may be something as simple as you may want to talk about something in your childhood that's known in your childhood that anybody that had an American lifestyle in childhood, you're familiar with. You might just be thinking about something. Hey, babe, you remember when such and such, different culture? No, I don't remember when such and such and such and such. I don't know what you're talking about. Right? It may be a certain way that you're used to keeping your house. They may keep their house different culturally. It may be a certain way you're used to your house smelling Culturally, they may keep their houses smelling a little bit different, and it may be different than you're used to dealing with, and you may be an issue for you, right? So, these small things can become things. You walk in your house every day and have a certain smell to it, right? Might be a thing for you, right? Might be a thing for you. Might not be anything that's like, bad or something. It might be just because of a certain type of food, and it's just in the air frequently, right? Whatever it is, right? Compatibility culturally can be an issue. Compatibility in educational level can be an issue. Compatibility in background, lifestyle, life quality, life expectations. What do you think your future looks like 5 years from now? Okay, we're crossing paths, and at this point in our lives, we're at this intersection, but really we're going two different directions this way, right? So 5 years from now, we'll be over here, and we have this gap now, right, between us. All these things are considered when it comes to compatibility. What is the level of your religiosity? We're not saying that you're not Muslim, but the level of your faith practice should be compatible to the faith practice of the one that you are marrying. Or at least there should be complement, right? It should be complement because, if you're not really practicing like that and you marry someone who is, it's going to be a little bit of conflict there. It's going to be a little bit of conflict. Maybe you need to marry somebody who's practicing how you are or who's practicing how you are not. Maybe that might work out better for you. Marry somebody who's practicing how you are not, and the two of you can kind of help each other get there. On the other side, someone who is further into their faith practice and they have certain consistencies with them now because they are been practicing a certain way for a certain period of time. You married a non-practicing brother. You married a non-practicing sister. You married a new Shahada, right? You married a new Muslim. And now you just expect them to be where you are 20, 30 years later in your Islam. No, they're not going to be there. Sorry. No. Think back to how you were when you were a new Muslim your first 1, 5, 7 years. How were you really? How were you really in those years? Because that's where they are. And that's what you accepted when you married this person. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. They're going to want to do some of the things that new Muslims do. They're going through the changes in the detox from being a non-Muslim. And in that detox, some of that toxin is still present. Now it's in your house because you chose to marry the person. Now you want to come back and complain, right? Because Islam say you're supposed to be like this and like. You're right, Islam does say that. But why you marry this person and when you know the person is this way? Right? If you don't know, a new Muslim in America, right? I can't speak for the whole West on this one. In America, a new Muslim is a new Muslim for 5 to 7 years. Around year 10 or so, you start to settle. You really begin to get into the adulthood in your faith from year 20 forward. That's what that is. That's the development, right? We understand the point? We clear?
That's where patience coming from.
Patience. Right, you married 25 years, you married somebody been Muslim for 3 years. You expect them to be where you at 25, 30 years later. And you upset because they're not getting up in the middle of the night and praying. You upset because they overslept Fajr. You upset because they're still struggling to get their prayers consistent 5 times in a day. Yeah, you pray your sunnah. You're not as worried about your 5 prayers. I mean, you've been there, did that already. I'm settled in my 5 prayers. I'm working on my sunnah. I'm getting consistent with my qiyamul layl at night. I got certain things that I do. I don't need to hear a whole lot of music. I don't need to watch a whole lot of TV. Okay, it's there, but I can go without. Right? Okay, I'm trying to get this knowledge. Let's go travel over here to this Muslim country. What you mean you want to leave the country? You want to go live over there? You live in a third world country for? Right? This is what you accept. You're accepting this. When you marry this person, you're accepting that you are going to develop that person and be patient with them, cultivate them until they get to where you are. That's the job you sign up for, brother. That's what you sign up for, sister. Not just to marry somebody because they look good to you. Sorry, not sorry. Okay. The author continues and he states, so if the wali is absent, if there is no wali, or the wali is absent for an extended period of time, or if the wali is refusing to ever marry the woman off, because you have that as well. You have guardians that would just hold them in spiritual prison and just never marry the sister off. Anybody that comes by, no. It's one thing if he's looking out for her best interest and the person not compatible. It's another thing he's just not allowing the woman to marry. He's in the way, right? He's a blocker, right? In these instances, Zawwajaha al-Hakim, the Hakim, the judge, or the one that has the authority of a judge, has the authority to override the wali in this instance. I'm not saying it's something that should be done easily, because we know the right and the responsibility of the wali. It's not easily removed, but the Hakim, the judge, does have the authority to do that. Or the one that's in the seat of the Hakim, in the seat of the judge, he does have the ability to override, right? And in our instance, this can be the Islamic center that is qualified for such, the imam that is qualified for such. Mind you, I'm not saying any Islamic center, I'm not saying any imam. I'm saying the Islamic center that is qualified for such, the imam that is qualified for such, the sheikh or the student of knowledge, the disciple of knowledge in your area that is qualified for such, has the authority of that judge in the absence of a judge. Okay? As has come in the hadith, a sultan waliyu man la waliya lahu. The sultan is the wali of the one who does not have a wali. This is collected by Ashabul Sunan, the companions of the Sunan, except for An-Nasa'i, the companions of the Sunan. Again, this language, companions of the Sunan. These are hadith sources, references where you find these hadith at. In this instance, the terminology, Ashabul Sunan, the companions of the Sunan, it means Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. The author states this hadith is collected by the companions of the Sunan except for An-Nasa'i, meaning it's collected by the three. You can find this in Abu Dawood, you can find this in the Tirmidhi, you can find this in Ibn Majah. Something else very important to mention, and we'll offer a story commensurate to this. It is imperative to specify the individual who is marrying, or the individuals who are marrying in the marital contract, right? In the marital contract, in the act. So it is not فَلَا يَصِحْ, he states, it is not valid. It is not valid to say زَوَّجْتُكَ بِنْتِي وَلَهُ غَيْرُهَا. It's not valid for the guardian to say, I marry you to my daughter, and he's got more than one daughter. Which daughter are you talking about? You got to specify who you're talking about, right? So that she can be distinguished from other than her by name or by description. Well, I'll give you a story. On an occasion, I can't say in a different lifetime, but a few years ago, there was a marital ceremony that I was performing, right? And the guardian of the sister, we're at the point of ijab and qabul in the ceremony. We're at the point of proposal and acceptance. So the guardian is proposing the sister, the bride, to the groom to marry. And he says, I marry you to the sister. Do you accept? Right? And of course there were a few sisters there, right? One of them happened to be my wife. So I stopped the ceremony and I said, you need to specify who you're talking about, brother, because it ain't gonna be that one. Right? Specify who you're talking about. You know what I mean? So you have to specify who you're marrying who to, right? In the ceremony. So this is why in the marital ceremony, this is why at the beginning or at the middle or at the end, you're gonna see the officiate of the ceremony making people say who they are by name. This is why that is, right? That's why. right? It's not just something that's just ceremonial or just to acknowledge people to make them feel good. No, we're trying to assure that your marriage is valid. And one of the ways we assure your marriage is valid, we specify exactly who is marrying who. So-and-so, last name so-and-so, is marrying so-and-so, last name so-and-so, and the guardian is so-and-so, last name so-and-so. Likewise, the witnesses are so-and-so, last name so-and-so. Right? We specify this in our Sharia. Right? This is why that's done. All right? And lastly here, the author states, it is also imperative that the items that can prevent a marriage from being legal, from being valid, that they are not present. There are certain things that can make a marriage not valid. So those things that can invalidate your marriage, we have to make sure they're not there. Because you can go through this ceremonial process and even fulfill the conditions, but if these things are present that invalidate the marriage, you're not married. And we have this as well, because people marry and they don't know what they're doing, right? I recall, not here, right? Not here. We'll share where. This was back in DC over 10 years ago. We had gotten into a space where there were so many people, young people, embracing Islam, right? It was a flood. I mean, it was unusual on a Friday if there was not 1 to 5 people taking Shahada every single Jumu'ah, right? So you get a whole lot of young people in the city, and their orientation to Islam is different than what a lot of our orientation was when we came into Islam, right? We got a new model now, right? These are these new Muslims that got out now, right? So back at that time, so many of them, and of course, you know, they want to start to do things kind of right, live a little bit better, right? As young as just give you an idea of shahadas, as young as 12 years old, we had a 12-year-old young man who came in on his own by himself, came into the masjid around Asr time. I'm interested in Islam. I want to get married. Like, I'm interested in Islam. I want to become a Muslim. I'm sorry. And we're looking at him. I'm like, where your parents at? you know what I mean? So we actually did that. He gave us his mother's number. We met with her, and she wasn't Muslim, but she wanted to support her son in being Muslim. And okay, all right, we'll do it. Don't say we're trying to steal your son. We're not a cult, right? As young as 9 years old at that time, right? On their own. But a lot of teenagers, early 20s. But in this world, right, in that new world at that time, of course, it's 10, 15 years later now. In fact, one of these brothers, I just saw him yesterday, may Allah preserve him. So some of these people are still around, alhamdulillah, 10, 15 years later, alhamdulillah. In any regard, they start getting married, right? But they're young, they're a little rambunctious. They want to do stuff their type of way. They don't want to go to the masjid. They think that, you know, they think we gatekeeping, they think we blocking. Like, no, we did this a little bit. We're looking out for you. Process. Let's walk you through this. They go out on their own. They start doing marriages on their own. It got so bad, I'm not going to say exactly where, but those that were there, y'all know, if y'all was there, if some of y'all watching, y'all was there, there's a specific McDonald's on such and such street, on such and such corner. They would go to the McDonald's with the Big Mac, Coke and a smile, get married at the McDonald's, right? So now we got all these marriages floating around that we're not even aware of. These people are actually married. We don't hear about the marriage until there's problems. Right? Because the brother wanted to get with this girl, whatever girl he saw out in the street, whatever he was doing. So then he do his little game talk, slick talk, Mac game order, and then now but you gotta be Muslim now. You gotta be Muslim, then we can do it. She don't know nothing about Islam. She's doing this to be with you because you told her this is what she got to do to be with you, right? So you do that, you get married. Sister learned a couple things or two. Now she realized, oh, you're not doing this right. Now we get the phone calls. Now we could have avoided all of that if you came in the front and we let us guide you through the process. You know what I mean? Okay. So in any regard, in our next sitting, inshallah ta'ala, we will be discussing Babu Muharramat fi Nikah. What is unlawful in marriage? What is unlawful in marriage? What are some things that are unlawful that if you attempt to get married with these unlawful things present, your marriage is not valid? That is next week. Hadha wallahu a'lam, sallallahu ala Muhammad. Are there any questions? Those of us that are online this way, if you have questions, those of us online that way, if you have questions, and the floor, yes.
So, in the case where the wali, it's the girl's father, family member, whatever, and they go through the steps of trying to, or she goes through the steps of trying to get a different wali because the father's not fulfilling his rights as a wali.
Uh-huh.
What are those steps afterwards? Can it just be him removed as the wali and then you go to the mansion and get another one?
Uh-huh.
Or you have to go through, because I was taught you have to go through the father's side of the family first before you even consider going anywhere else.
All right, so the question is asking, if your father is unfit to be wali, what is the process of going to someone else? Do you go to other family members? Do you go to the masjid that's qualified, the Islamic center that's qualified to deal with that, or the imam that's qualified to deal with that? Again, every Islamic center, every imam is not qualified to deal with these areas. Honestly, the first discussion is, and anyone, if a woman goes to the family or the qualified Islamic center or the qualified imam or the qualified sheikh and says, I need a different wali, my father's not qualified to be the wali, the first discussion ought to be, what makes you think he's not qualified? That's discussion number one, because not qualified doesn't mean, well, I don't like him, or I don't like what he's doing. That's not good enough. That ain't good enough, right? What you talking about, kufr? Your father, is he an apostate from the faith of Islam? Is that what we're saying? It's got to be heavy like that. It's got to be heavy like that. Is he physically abusing you, sister? Is he, are you got some welts on you or something? Is something wrong? We need to call the police? Like what? It's supposed to be that heavy. That's how heavy it's supposed to be, right? Not, me and daddy got into a little tiff. We're not talking right now. Sorry, not sorry. That ain't it, right? But if it is an actual real situation where the father is disqualified from being the wali, and there are other potential people that can be qualified to be the wali, if there are other Muslims in the family, then it goes to the next qualified Muslim in the family, right? It doesn't get to the Islamic center until we have exhausted all of the qualified men in the family who are Muslim that can fulfill that role. So we've exhausted the qualified men on the father side of the family that are Muslim, and we have exhausted all the men on the mother side of the family who are qualified Muslims. After all of that, then the responsibility could possibly fall on the qualified Islamic center, qualified imam, qualified sheikh in your region. Make sense? Questions? We don't see any questions. Maybe we see a comment. I'm not sure if it's a question yet. Any other questions on the floor before we look online here? May Allah bestow His mercy upon you as well. Okay, it's a comment here. We're going to read it. We believe this is our sister. She states, as a woman who's been married more than once, there is something to be said about the guidance of following your wali's guidance when it comes to marriage. 100%, absolutely. Absolutely. It saves you a lot of grief when men know you're under the protection of another man. They don't, quote unquote, play with you as much because they know better. That's true. That's also true. That's also true, right? And we have certain brothers. We have certain brothers that know how to target know how to target sisters. They know who to try, right? They know who to try, right? But we're not absolving sisters. We got certain sisters. They gonna try you too, right? Certain sisters, they gonna try you too, right? That's on both sides. That's on both sides of the table there, right? But the sisters are a little bit, maybe a little bit smarter, than the brothers, right? The brother gonna be, he just gonna jump straight in your DMs. Oh, sister so and so, you look like a so and so. Sister so and so, are you married? Straight in the DMs, whatever it is, right? Or just walk straight up to the sister, right? Okay. What the sister's gonna do is, oh, good brother, I need help. Oh, good brother, I have a question about the faith of Islam. Can you answer this for me? Right? Oh, good brother, right? They're gonna try to find a way in. I don't have anybody to help me except you, right? Brother kind-hearted, brother gonna try, and then once you crack that door, she's gonna position and reposition and try to work her way in, right? Right? Women do it that way, right? Okay. Any other questions before we close? Y'all can tell me. Am I lying? Y'all can tell me I'm lying. Y'all can push back.
I don't think that was the sister's aim on that. I think she was more so gearing to say, like, you have a better outcome in marriage when a brother knows that you have a walk hill and that you have like a
Strong support system.
in that area, because I mean that goes without saying, though. Like if someone looks like an easy target, you will label her a little bit more.
Right.
Her whole family coming behind her because her whole family wasn't.
Right. All right. Our sister's echoing our sister's statement, and she's saying that that if a woman has a support system, or a guardian or a family that is behind her, and it's something that is known, then the person that's coming to her just naturally is going to come a little more right and exact, right, than would be otherwise. Barakallahu fikum.